What is up, my peepholes? This is your guy, Cly, and welcome back to Budget Buys. Now today, what I want to take a look at is the Gradient wireless speaker that I found just last week at my local Five Below. And the thing that really caught my attention about this speaker is the fact that it claims to have a color-changing LED, and the name Gradient kind of implies that it's going to be a proper color change as opposed to the red, green, and blue flashes we've been seeing in all kinds of speakers up until the Halo wireless speaker that I reviewed not too long ago. Fortunately, this side illustration here did make me think that I was right, so I bit the bullet. Also on this side, you can see that this is brought to us by our good friends at Bass Jaxx, because of course it is. More than 90% of the audio gear you find at Five Below is from Bass Jaxx, so I'm not that surprised. Fortunately, they have been doing something a little bit differently this year, and that is they're using 52mm audio drivers as opposed to the 40mm audio drivers they were using through the bulk of their speakers into the end of last year, maybe even into the first half of this year. I don't know. I haven't reviewed them all yet. But at least the most recent two that I've reviewed have had the 52mm. In fact, at the end of this video, I'm actually going to show you the difference between the 40mm and the 52mm, so look forward to hearing that. Now, as for the rest of the specs, this is your standard cheapo Bluetooth speaker fare, in that it is a 4 ohm impedance speaker with 3.7 volt lithium ion battery, 300 milliamp hours, and 1.5 to 2 hour playtime. Now, admittedly, in the manual it says you can get up to 2.5 hours of playtime, but I haven't pushed it that far yet. Though I did get to watch a movie while listening to it through the speaker, so take from that what you will. Also, this is a 3-watt speaker, as are the vast majority of the $5 speakers. Look forward to a review next week where I bust out a 5-watt speaker that I picked up for $10 on eBay. And heck, we can even go ahead and show the difference between the playtime of $5 and $10. See if it's worth upgrading a little bit. Anyway, enough prattling on. Let me get this box out of the way and bring that speaker out. And here's the little bugger. Now, I did zoom in just a little bit to get a better shot, and I will admit I'm really digging the aesthetic. It has a bit of a 1970s feel, though once you turn on the LED that does go away. Also, it has a good bit of heft. It feels like it could take a drop or two, at least onto carpet, because harder surfaces and this plastic probably won't get along. And that's good that it's sturdy because, as you can see here, they included a lanyard hole so you can take it on the go. Admittedly, they didn't include a lanyard, so you're going to have to provide your own. They're not that expensive. Now, let me go ahead and turn on the LED, and yes, it does indeed have a proper color transition. Let me go ahead and turn off the lights. There we are. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. Admittedly, you'll see a strobe on the video, but you don't see that in real life. That's just an artifact created by shutter speed and LED flicker that you're going to get with most digital video cameras. Not really much you can do there. But to my eyes, this is a very nice, smooth transition that it will actually look pretty dang good in most lighting conditions as long as you're not in direct sunlight. Now, I know what you're all here for. You want to know how this sounds, so give me a second to set something convoluted up, and I'm actually going to put this head to head with the best sounding 40mm speaker that I have. So what I'm going to be doing with this Bluetooth battle is putting the Gradient wireless speaker up against the Blast Bluetooth Cube that I reviewed a little over a year ago. This is hands down the best sounding of my 40mm speakers, so it should really drive home the differences between the 40mm and the 52mm audio drivers that you're going to see in these budget speakers. Now, I did say that I was going to be doing something a little convoluted, and that's because I want to hook these up to a mixer so that I can have the exact same audio file playing through both speakers simultaneously and alternate back and forth so you can compare the audio quality. But of course, Bluetooth does have one slight limitation, and that is that each of these speakers can only be hooked up to a single device at a time. So instead of hooking both of these up to the same computer and then bouncing things back and forth, I had to hook up this one to a laptop, this one to a cell phone, both devices to my wireless network, which then will be streaming audio from a completely different computer, and all kinds of fun things are happening. Now, I bring all of that up specifically because you may hear the occasional stutter during this, and that has nothing to do with the speakers. These are just here to demonstrate audio quality. The stutter is actually going to come from the fact that my setup is extremely janky. That's all there really is to it. I want to do this in a more elegant fashion, but that has to wait for the time being. It is not in the budget. Anyway, let's get things started off with the Blast Bluetooth Cube, and I will try to remember to tell you which one is playing at what time. And I think that's enough. So hopefully all of that came through my lapel mic, because I haven't set up anything fancier yet. I'm going to do that in the future. If I do any more of these head-to-heads, let me know in the comments if you actually found that entertaining or interesting in the slightest. But what I noticed, especially looking back at my audio track, which I have off in the distance there, while the Bluetooth Cube is demonstrably louder, the audio quality from the Gradient is a lot better. I'm going to say the boost from the Cube does come from the construction, where you have a little bit more area to reverberate, but it has the same limitation that I've noticed through all of the 40mm speakers, and that is the fact that the audio is just not as clean sounding. In this case, it was a little muffled and kind of muddy. In the case of something like the Chromatic speaker, which I'll go ahead and link now, it's smaller, more compact like this, but it's a little on the tinny side. And so I do find this the better sounding of those two. But this is by far the better sounding of these two. It's just crisp, clean, and lovely. Though, I actually think I'm going to put this head-to-head against the next speaker, which is going to be a 5-watt, $10 speaker, so look forward to that. Hopefully I'll have something a little bit better with my setup then, even if it's just slightly better. But I think it's time for me to render a verdict, and ultimately, I'm going to say this is worth the $5. Yes, you don't get as much playtime as you would with a more expensive speaker, and yes, it is only 3 watts. I actually had someone in a previous video really get angry because it was 3 watts. It's a $5 speaker. You're not going to get much more powerful when it comes to especially Bluetooth speakers. And despite only being 3 watts, this actually fills a room. I was listening to this during the test, just setting all of this up from a completely different room in my house, and it sounded just fine, echoing throughout the building. So yes, it is only 3 watts, but it has chutzpah. It has a kick to it. And unless you're outside a long distance away, this is going to do the job. Or, of course, if you're in a very, very loud room, you might have some issues hearing it, but it's going to take some effort to drown this little guy out. So yes, this is worth $5, and of course the beauty of the fact that you will be getting it in your hand the day you buy it, and a receipt so you can return it quite easily if there's any issues. That's just icing on top. Anyway, I think that's all I really have to say about this little guy right here without rambling into next week. So, Until next time, this is your guy Cly signing off.